A warm welcome to all of you in this another session, another webinar from Parul Institute of Public. I welcome all my panelists, Dr. Ranjit Krishnan sir, and all the other dignitaries present here. Let me give a quick round of introduction for Mr. Ranjit Krishnan. Uh, he has an experience of 15 years and has gained a considerable expertise in various facets of leadership, revenue generation, operational excellence, expansion, and business analysis. In his current role as COO of Rajgiri Hospital, uh, Mr. Ranjit is responsible for operations and profit and loss of this center. He is also a strategic advisor for Rajgiri in establishing and developing overseas management consultancy services and also responsible for new initiatives right from concept design, feasibility analysis, implementation till handover of stable operations to respective stakeholders. Mr. Ranjit holds a fellowship in operations management from IIM Kozhikode, India, and a master's in hospital administration from Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. His areas of interest include operation management, financial analysis, data analytics, and information technology and systems. So, a warm welcome, heartily welcome to Mr. Ranjit Krishnan for sparing your valuable time and giving your nice arranging this session. Thank you, sir, for joining us today. I'll hand over the session to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vaibhav. So good evening to all of you. And let me thank first Dr. Radish, my senior, of course, and of course the director of Department of Public Health in Parul University for inviting me to present my thoughts on hospital finance. And also I would like to thank Dr. Vaibhav for taking his time to be a moderator of this session. So without wasting much of the time, let me go into the topic directly. So ABC of hospital finance, So let me tell you why I have taken this topic, especially students like you, because hospital finance is directly proportional to the sustainability of an organization. And it has got a very vital role when you are becoming a hospital administrator of an organization or a hospital. So that doesn't mean that the hospital finance alone is going to contribute to the growth or the sustainability of this hospital. You have other activities which are directly connected to hospital finance. So always your concentration should be more onto the operational aspects, new initiative, so that more patients comes into the hospital, and the indirect outcome is actually the hospital finance. Hope you are able to see my presentation, right? Vaibhav? Yeah. Can you see my slides?
Yes. Very much audible. Very much visible.
Yeah. So coming to this presentation, I've divided this presentation into 4 sections. So on the first 2 slides, we will be talking about the financial terms an hospital administrator should know while you run a hospital. On the second part, we will be discussing about few ratios and parameters which has got a direct connection to the income and expense of a hospital. And on the third part, we will be talking more about profit, EBITDA, EBT, and etc. On the last part, we will be talking a little more about the shareholder capital, capital employed, and things like that. So that's the way I've designed this presentation. So moving on to the first slide. Can you see my presentation, the second slide?
No, not the second slide, just once first slide is visible.
Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at from the hospital finance perspective, there are three key financial reports an hospital administrator should look into. The first one is called the profit and loss account. Second one is the balance sheet, and the third one is called the cash flow statement. So let's discuss a little about all these three reports in detail. So what exactly a profit and loss account? A profit and loss account gives an understanding about income and expense of a hospital. In simple words, it will give you an understanding about the financial performance of a hospital on that particular profit, that particular month, which also gives you an understanding about the operational margin which you have got because of the business on that particular month. So the profit and loss account gives an understanding about a monthly performance of the hospital when you take a month profit and loss account. The second one is actually the balance sheet. So balance sheet reports the hospital assets, liabilities, and the fund balance. As the term suggests, the balance sheet gives you a balanced understanding about the financial condition of the hospital or any organization. The third one is called the cash flow statement. Cash flow statement has to be analyzed on a monthly basis. The reason is because the cash flow is actually gives you the understanding of the pure cash you have in your hand to run the operations. It has got a difference from the profit and loss account and the cash flow statement. A simple example, when you look at a hospital, you have both cash patient and also the insurance patient. When a patient gets discharged in the month of January, they were under the insurance scheme. You might have seen you will be booking the income in profit and loss account if the patient is discharged on January. But normally the income, the pure cash comes to the hospital only on the month of February, if your credit period is around 30 days. So that's how the cash flow statement is very important while you run a hospital. So these are the key three financial reports a hospital administrator should look into while you run a hospital. So I would like to stress it once again: profit and loss account, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. Hope I am clear. Moving to the second slide. So now let's discuss a little about the budget. What exactly is a budget? Budget is a formal written statement of a hospital plan for the future, right? So it gives you an understanding about how the hospital has to run in a financial perspective in the next financial year. And if you look at the different kinds of budget, you have to look at probably three budgets. One is the operating budget, second is the capital budget, and the third one is the cash flow budget. So let's discuss about the operating budget. So what exactly is an operating budget? Before moving to operating budget, you need to understand what is a statistical budget. So statistical budget is nothing but it gives you an understanding about the numbers we are actually expecting in the next financial year. The numbers like outpatient numbers, inpatient numbers, the admission, the discharges, etc., right? So the first step of preparing an operating budget is coming up with a statistical budget, which normally the statistics are normally contributed or given by either the operations team or also with the help of the marketing team, right? So the operating budget is composed of the expense budget and income budget. Profit is used to finance the capital and capital budgets. That means the capital budget gives you an understanding about the different streams of incomes which are expected in the next financial year, the different categories of cost going to come in the next financial year under the expense head, and the profit, the money which you are going to make is going to go to the capital budget for procuring more assets or probably procuring another facility and etc. So operating budget gives you an understanding or probably a roadmap for the next financial year on an operation basis. Coming to the second one, the capital budget, it summarizes the future plan for acquisitions of plant, facilities, and equipments. For example, if you're planning to buy a MRI machine or a CT scan machine in the next financial year, that will become a part of the capital budget. So operating budget gives you an understanding about the income and expense. The capital budget gives you a forecast about the probable purchase, major purchase, which is going to happen in the next financial year. The last one is the cash flow budget. That gives you an understanding about every month and what is the kind of amount or the cash amount which is available in the bank to run the operations of the hospital. So we have discussed about 3 budget: operating budget, capital budget, and the cash flow budget. And also I spoken a little about the statistical budget. Moving to the next part. So the first two slides are, as I said earlier, I was actually trying to give an understanding about the different financial statements which are available for an administrator to look into. In the second part, we are going to talk about different ratios and parameters which has got a direct impact on the finances of a hospital. So what exactly is a ratio analysis? It is analysis of financial statements with the help of ratios. It helps to understand the financial position and performance of business concerns. A ratio may be expressed in proportion or percentage. Now let's go and see few of the parameters and ratios. The first one is called the bed occupancy. I think most of you might be understanding what exactly mean by a bed occupancy. But in this slide, we will try to define it in a proper way and also try to interpret it what exactly is a right bed occupancy. So bed occupancy is an indicator. This indicator is a measure of the volume and utilization of inpatient service. So this gives you an understanding about the performance of inpatient service of a hospital. So why there is an importance of inpatient service? Why there is a great importance given to the IP part of a hospital? The reason is, if you look at the income structure of a hospital, you will have, if you look at the income streams, you will have OP revenue, you will have IP revenue, you will have OP pharmacy revenue, then other miscellaneous revenue. Normally under 4 categories the incomes comes in. And 60% of the income mostly comes from inpatient revenue. So that is the relevance of inpatient services when it comes to the financial terms. So it is calculated as the occupied bed days divided by available bed days into 100. So that gives you the bed occupancy. So occupied bed days is actually the sum of occupancy in every day for the 30 days of a month. So that is actually gives you the occupied bed days. And the available bed days is nothing but if you have 300 beds, consider 30 days in a month, your available bed days are actually 9,000 days. So hope I am clear. So now going to the interpretation part of it. So 80 to 85% of bed occupancy rate is an ideal for good quality patient care. So 80 to 85% is supposed to be an ideal bed occupancy rate for a hospital. 50 to 20% beds are kept vacant for emergency, maternity, isolation, and intensive care. So always you keep 15 to 20% of the beds available to handle the maternity, isolation, and intensive care. So that means whenever your hospital is attaining a consistent 80% bed occupancy, that gives you a warning for you to go for expansion. So whenever you consistently touch 80% of occupancy, make sure that you are planning for the next phase of expansion. So 100% occupancy means overutilization of the hospital, and less than 80% is an uneconomical bed occupancy percentage. So on an average, you will have to always make sure that you are above 80%, you are at 80% when it comes to bed occupancy. Bed occupancy is actually directly proportional to the income of an hospital. So whenever the bed occupancy rate increases, automatically the income of the hospital also increases, and we can say that the hospital is actually working on very efficient way. So moving on to the next parameter, the next one is called average length of stay. It is also called as ALOS, average length of stay. So the first one, this indicator describes the average stay of all or a class of inpatient discharged over a given period. So this indicator describes the average stay of all or a class of inpatient discharged over a given period. The second point is it is used as an indicator of efficiency in containing inpatient service costs. You will have to really have a look at this particular point. It is used as an indicator of efficiency in containing inpatient service cost. It is calculated as the total patient days divided by total discharges. The nominator is same while you calculate the bed occupancy rate. So the average length of stay is an indicator of an efficiency of an inpatient service of a hospital. As I said earlier, 60% of the core income comes from inpatient services. The same way, a major part of the cost is also contributed to the inpatient service facilities. So you will have to really make sure that the average length of stay is restricted within 4. The 3 to 4 is supposed to be an ideal average length of stay for a multi-speciality hospital. Hope I am clear on this slide. Moving on, the accounts receivable position. This is another indicator to make sure that your cash flow has been handled in a better way. So this represents the term days in accounts receivable. So the accounts receivable position is also termed as days in accounts receivable. This term indicates the length of the cycle from the date of the patient bill to the date when the payment is received. So days in accounts receivable is equal to days of the patient bill to the date when the payment is received. If you remember on the first slide, when I was talking about the profit and loss account and cash flow statement, I was giving you an example of an insurance patient who got discharged on January, and the payment from the insurance company comes on the next month, February. So that is actually the difference of that date is called days in accounts receivable, right? So days in accounts receivable should be approximately 50 to 30 days or less. So that means you will have to make sure that whatever the amounts which the insurance company is supposed to give us, or probably the corporate company is supposed to give us, has to come into our account within 15 or 30 days from the date of billing. This is actually a tedious job, and unless your corporate does and insurance company, insurance wing of your hospital keep up the turnaround time of sending the bill on time, following it up, giving the clearances or giving the answers whenever they raise a query. This is not going to happen, and this is something normally the administrator doesn't follow and finally goes into trouble, because your P&L, the income statement will give you high figures, but if you look at the bank, your account will be very less or even zero. So this statement is a very critical statement or a parameter while you run a hospital. So we have spoken about bed occupancy rate, we have spoken about average length of stay, and we are now talking about the accounts receivable position. The another one is, or probably the last one is, the average revenue per occupied bed days. This is also called as ARPOB. Okay, this is commonly used for measuring the financial performance of the hospital. So it is calculated as the IP income divided by the occupied bed days. So total income of that particular month divided by the nominator of the data which we have taken for calculating the occupancy rate. So that gives you the revenue per occupied bed. So this is also another indicator for you to understand the financial position. This will give you also an understanding if your specialty mix of the hospital is good. So there are the departments like gynec, the gastrosurgery are actually gives you a very good ARPOB compared to a general medicine and other medical departments. So this is also a very critical measurement while you can talk about the financials of a hospital. So we have almost covered the 2 sessions. On the first session, we have spoken about the financial statements and the measurement, the terms which you need to understand while you monitor the finance of the hospital. On the second part, we have discussed about different ratios and parameters which has got a direct or indirect impact on these financial terms like profit and loss account, cash flow statement, and balance sheet. Now finally we are coming to the statement of what is actually called an operating margin, or there is another term called EBITDA. So operating margin is nothing but it is a difference between the total revenue minus the sum of direct expense and the indirect expense. So operating income is the total revenue minus your direct expenses and indirect expenses. So operating margin, you are clear. So now the operating margin, they have another term called EBITDA. Okay, so this EBITDA and EBIT is going to be two terms, which you will be keep hearing whenever you are attending a meeting or a annual general board meeting with the management very often, because this is going to be your target numbers. Okay, so this you need to give a little more concentration while I describe about this. So EBITDA is nothing but earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. So earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. I think everyone is very clear about what exactly meant by an interest and tax. So we will probably discuss a little about depreciation and amortization. So depreciation, the definition of depreciation is the monetary value of an asset decreases over time due to use and wear and tear. For example, you have a biomedical equipment which gives you, which costs you around 1 lakh rupees, right? And then the life cycle of that is, let's say, 4 years. So every year in your profit and loss account, the depreciation of 25% of that equipment will be considered, and on the fifth year it will be calculated as zero value. So that term is actually called depreciation. Amortization is nothing but is the practice of spreading an intangible assets cost over that asset's useful life. Instead of definition, I think if you think about the brand value of a company is an example of the term amortization. So the EBITDA is actually earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. And the pure profit is actually called EBIT, that is in earnings before interest and tax, which is where from EBIT we have already reduced the depreciation and amortization. Then you are getting actually EBIT or PBT. We can also call it as PBIT, profit before interest and tax. Okay, so you need to always keep in mind these two terms, EBITDA and EBIT. Now, the operating margin or EBITDA, anything above 20 and above is considered as good EBITDA percentage. Anything between 10 and 20 is considered to be an average EBITDA. Anything below 10 is considered as low EBITDA percentage. Right? So I think I'm very clear about this particular slide and the terms. So now moving on. So now we have discussed about different terms which are used or different reports as an administrator you should look into while you are in a hospital. We have also discussed about the ratios and parameters which will contribute to the finance, to the income and expense of a hospital. And finally, we have also discussed what is EBITDA or operating margin. Now we are going to discuss a little more about a profitability ratios. Coming to these slides, you might take a little more time to understand. Probably you will get these terms better once you are into the business and probably spend maybe 5 years in healthcare administration or hospital administration. So coming to the first one, return on capital employed. Rather, it is popularly known as return on investment. So return on investment is calculated as the profit into 100 divided by capital employed, right? EBIT into 100 divided by capital employed. It is a profitability ratio, helps to determine the profit that a company earns for the capital it employs. It provides a test of profitability related to the source of long-term funds. So return on investment is a profitability ratio and it is calculated as EBIT into 100 or EBIT divided by capital employed into 100. So now look at three data, which is EBIT, EBITDA, EBIT, and then return on investment, and which are typically we have seen in our sector, or what are the, like, what will be a benchmark which we can look forward to? EBITDA is typically, if you look at the market, EBITDA typically you will see between 17 to 20%. Profit of 12 to 15% is normally seen in the sector, and when it comes to the return on investment, 4 to 7%. But if you ask me the best, what is the best, or probably the benchmark, 35% is supposed to be the best EBITDA. 30% EBIT is supposed to be one of the best EBIT, and 20% of return on investment is supposed to be good when it comes to the hospital or healthcare sector. Fine. So moving on to the next slide. As I said, EBIT, it is a firm's profit that includes all incomes and expenses except interest expense and income tax expenses. Capital employed is, it is the value of all the assets employed in a business or business unit, and can be calculated by adding fixed asset to working capital or by subtracting current liabilities from total assets. So that is actually the definition of capital employed. We will also try to understand more about the fixed asset and working capital in the same slide itself. So capital employed is nothing but fixed stuff. You will get the capital employed by subtracting your current liabilities from your total assets. Now, what is a fixed asset? Fixed asset is purchased for long-term use and are not likely to be converted quickly into cash, such as land, buildings, and equipment is called the fixed assets. The working capital is the capital of a business which is used in day-to-day trading operations. So the amount which has been kept apart for running the hospital on a day-to-day basis is called the working capital. So as a general rule, the return on capital employed or return on investment should be equal to at least twice the current interest rate. Unless you give at least twice the interest rate, nobody is going to invest on your business, right? Moving on, the liquidity ratios. So we will try to understand a little about what is liquidity and what is current ratio and current assets, etc. So let's understand what is liquidity. Liquidity refers to the hospital ability to meet its current liability as they fall due. The current liabilities are those liabilities which are payable within a period of 12 months from the date of balance sheet. That means you have a liability, and if you are able to handle that liability within 12 months, or you are able to meet up that liability within 12 months, is supposed to be the liquidity, is called the liquidity part of it. So what is current ratio? It's a very most common ratio for measuring the liquidity. So we have discussed about what is liquidity. So the current ratio is actually a parameter to measure the liquidity, which measures how much cash a hospital has on hand. Which will give you an understanding about how much cash a hospital has on hand at that particular point of time. So now how to calculate it? So current ratio is equal to current assets divided by current liabilities. So current ratio is equal to current assets divided by current liabilities. So in the current assets are those assets which are likely to be converted into cash or cash equivalents within 12 months from the date of balance sheet. So in this side, we have discussed about what is liquidity, how this liquidity has been measured with the help of current ratio, and what exactly meant by current assets also. Moving on to the next slide, the another ratio is called the solvency ratio, right? So it is also called the capital structure ratios. Capital structure refers to the amount of long-term debt included in hospital capital. So what are the different type of long-term debt? We will discuss in our next slide. So the capital structure refers to the amount of long-term debt included in hospital capital, right? So how the debt equity ratio measures the capacity of the hospital to make debt service payments from operations. So debt equity ratio gives you an understanding how whether the hospital is able to meet up their debt from its operations. So it is calculated as debt equity ratio is equal to long-term debt divided by shareholders equity, right? So long-term debt divided by shareholders equity. So this ratio indicates the relative proportion of long-term debt and equity in financing assets of a firm. So in this slide, we have discussed about what is solvency ratio, how it is calculated with the help of debt equity ratio. So let's understand what are the different long-term debts. Debts are like debentures, bank loan, public deposits, employee provident fund, and pension fund. I think debentures will be probably one time you might not be knowing. If you look at the definition of it, it is a type of a bond or other debt instrument that is unsecured by collateral. So these are amounts which you get without providing any collateral, right? So these are the different examples or different kinds of long-term debts. Moving to the final slide. So shareholders fund refers to the amount of share capital including equity capital and preference capital. So shareholders fund is the amount of share capital which has been divided into two, which is called equity capital and preference capital. Let's understand equity capital. Equity capital funds paid into a business by investors in exchange for common shares. They're considered as owner of the company. So equity capital shareholders are considered as the owners of the company. The preference capital is a portion of the capital which is raised through the issue of preference shares. An accepted norm for this ratio is considered to be 2:1. So I was trying to mention this because we were actually talking about shareholders equity in this slide. So that's the reason why I spoke about the shareholders fund. So with this, I am ending my presentation and thank you. I think I was trying to take you through the common terms which are used in hospital finances and the relevance of it, how and different ratios and parameters which can easily impact these parameters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ranjit sir. That was a lovely presentation.
Thank you, Vaibhav.
Entirely covered very widely used aspects of finances, hospital finances to be specific. Yeah, so this session is now open for if our any of our viewers wants to share.
Any doubts if anyone have? Again, try to clarify those points.
So I'm not sure, Ranjit sir, whether they have the permission to unmute themselves.
Okay.
So if there are any questions that come up, I'll be happy to forward it to you. I have
Please. I'll be happy to answer it also, Vaibhav.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. With that note, we would like to conclude this session. Wonderful learning session we had. Thank you so much again, sir. Just give me a moment so that we have this small token of appreciation, that to e-token. So I'll just share my screen.
Thank you. Sure, Vaibhav.
Yeah, so this is a small token of appreciation to you, sir.
Thank you.
Time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vaibhav, and thank you, Dr. Ritesh. Again, thanks again for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Hello?
Yeah, Ritesh.
Yeah, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So I would like to say that thank you for accepting our invitation and you gave me the valuable information. Okay, so our students, okay. So let me know, I need one more clarification. Now you are working as the CEO in the Rajgiri hospital. Am I
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for behalf of our MPH, especially the MHS students, so
Yeah.
what are the job is available or they can in the this kind of private or multi-specialty hospital? Because almost they have the completed their bachelor degree in the what is the health related medical courses. Okay. So now they pursuing the MHA also.
Mm-hmm.
So while they are also looking for the same kind of job, okay, whether they feasibility or how far they have to run to get this kind of job.
You are talking about the MHA students, right, Radish?
Yeah, MHA, yeah, especially those students who focusing on the hospital based.
Yeah. Radish, if you ask me, this is probably one of the very common questions which I normally face whenever I go and talk to any of the students or any of the colleges.
Yeah.
I can confidently tell you, like hospital administration as a field or probably as a profession is probably one of the very promising profession at this point of time. The very simple reason, see, if you probably look back 2 years back or probably current scenario, probably one sector which is 2 years back you had recessions. Definitely, healthcare was not got affected. And if you look at the current scenario also, COVID scenario, probably one sector which has not muchly affected, or probably if you look at from the employment perspective, not on the financial perspective, probably one sector which has got a bright future was actually healthcare. And if you look at the potential candidates who are available in the market to take up these kinds of job is very less, right? And so if you ask me, there is a huge potential, and there is definitely opportunity for everyone to get a job. But you will have to also understand one thing that, see, hospital administration, see, during our time, probably when we started our career, it was very, very new to any of the hospital, like in a hospital administrator being the head of the organization and running a hospital. But if you now look at the corporate hospital or even a hospital which is fairly run good, there are people who is qualified or probably has the MHA degree running the hospital in a better way. So if you put in your efforts, it is not an easy job. Let me tell you very straightforward. Operation jobs, or in that case, hospital administration is not going to be an easy job because you are also playing with the life of a patient. So your processes and your system should be so perfect so that there is absolutely no way there is anything wrong happens. Ultimately goes to the patient effect. So the learning or probably the starting of career is going to be little challenging, but if you can overcome that challenge by your attitude and your learning capability, I would like to stress on that point, learning capability or willingness to learn on every day, you will have a bright future. We have no doubts on that.
Okay. That's, and one more thing I need. Okay.
Yeah.
So, the most of our MPH
Yeah.
students, they are doctors. Okay. So homeo doctors, BDS, and Ayurvedic doctors. So MBBS also. So
Yeah.
whether one the MPH students, okay. So
Yeah.
once they completed the Master of Public Health, whether they are eligible to get in order to get a good job in hospital, just like the PRO or
Uh,
any other.
yeah, of course, they will definitely get there because even in Rajagiri we have got candidates who has got the MPH qualification in the designation of junior executive operations or senior executive operations. They will definitely get an opportunity in hospital because they also understand the working of a hospital and also the common terms used in hospital. But again, I would like to stress another point here because see, but the COVID scenario has actually brought in thinking in the mind of even government to give more concentration into the healthcare sector, right? If you look at maybe on the last financial year budget, I think the spend on healthcare from the GDP was probably 2 or 6%, you know, which I'm damn sure on the coming financial is going to at least raise up to 5%. So if you look at the hospital is going to do a role of curative medicine, but from a public health point of view, the government is going to concentrate more on enhancing the health through preventive health measures. So that's where the public health students going to have a great opportunity. I'm sure they will be able to get more opportunity in government itself in the coming days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, okay. Vaibhav sir, we can continue.
Okay, let's conclude this wonderful session, sir. Thank you so much once again.
Pleasure, Vaibhav.
Sir, we are glad to have you for this informative session. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Person who was